Hello.
How are you?
Well, hey, I'm clearly not an Instagram guy. That's painfully obvious, you know. Aside from that, I'm doing okay.
Painfully obvious. It's great to see. It's great to see you.
Well, it's good to see you too. How you doing?
I'm trying to be okay in this interesting moment of lawlessness, threats, attempts to take a governor, kidnap a governor in these United States who's trying to fight for her people. Call in the midst of a president of the United States calling Kamala Harris a monster because she's telling the truth. I'm okay. How
Okay.
you? How you?
Well, I'm okay. You know what? But here's the deal. You know, these are indeed trying times, but we as a people have experienced trying times before, and we can't lose hope. We can't lose optimism that we'll get through it. We have to commit ourselves to making sure that we make the necessary changes. But you know, it's like this is all tough stuff. I get that, but it's not stuff that our ancestors didn't work their way through. They got through stuff a lot worse than this. So we should be concerned, but we got to fight.
And you know what? And you're absolutely right. You speak truth. We've seen trying times before. And when you said that, you know what came immediately to mind? Your sister-in-law, because these times remind me of what happened in the 50s and 60s. Talk to us about your sister-in-law, Vivian Malone.
Yeah, Vivian Malone, sister of my lovely wife, born and raised in Alabama, wanted to go to the University of Alabama, her state institution. She ultimately enrolled there in 1963, but only was able to enroll in her state university where her family had lived in Alabama for like 150 years because Bobby Kennedy, Nicholas Katzenbach, and the Justice Department and a bunch of federal troops stood down Governor George Wallace, who stood in the schoolhouse door and refused to let her and James Hood, another black student, enroll. She ultimately did enroll, was the first black graduate of the University of Alabama. She passed away a few years ago, but I am exceedingly proud of, what she did, the courage that she showed. People focus on that first day and how, you saw the pictures and the troops and all that stuff, but she then had to live at the University of Alabama as the only black student. People would not eat with her. She had a dorm floor to herself, which she said actually was pretty good because she had air conditioning and other students did not.
Oh, that's good.
But she got through it, she says, through her faith, through the support of her family. And, so I think about, you're right, April, to talk about, things like that. I mean, think about what she had to face. The day that she enrolled in 1963, that very night, Medgar Evers was assassinated. And over the course of that next few months, there were bomb threats. She always went to school with federal marshals. She went to classes with federal marshals, and she got through John Lewis and all the things that he went through. So again, these are tough times. There's no question about that. But if we remember our past and commit ourselves to the present and keep our eyes on the future at the same time, we'll be okay. We'll be okay.
So I just want to let everyone know, I understand the trolls are out. God bless the trolls, because the Bible says, you know what, when they see you, you'll rise in the presence of your enemies. Your cup will overflow. So it's all right. Haters make us better. So moving on, we've seen haters, haven't we, Eric Holder?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not paying any attention to. I'm not seeing what you're seeing. So, and this
good,
particularly bug me one way or the other.
I think what I'm going to do is turn off the comments. Ooh. So anyway, thank you. So yeah, because the trolls, when we have people like you, Kamala Harris, Hillary, and Bill Clinton on, they like to come out instead of just listening and understanding what truth looks like. So let's go to truth. Let's go to. We talk about that moment, the 50s and 60s, because I swear to beans, if you close your eyes, turn your head real fast, it looks like a sepia tone of the 50s and 60s. The words, the hate, the division, the racial unrest. And I think about voting. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 was gutted during your time as Attorney General with Shelby v. Holder, and it took out the preclearance of 4 and 5. It took out the sections 4 and 5 of the Voting Rights Act dealing with preclearance that allowed, there are 4 states, certain southern states, to have to go to the Justice Department to get approval to change voter rules. Look at what's happening in Texas. They're taking all the ballot boxes versus the post office, taking all the ballot boxes away, and you've got one in one state. Texas is a huge state. And people are not going to be able to do early voting like they want. Okay, that's voter suppression. This president just talked about years ago voter fraud. He speaks things and we should listen because ultimately he makes it happen. So now we're seeing possibilities of voter fraud. Could you talk to us about this moment in history as it relates to voting, voter fraud, and voter suppression, and what it's going to look like after November 3rd, the day after November 3rd, in your opinion?
Well, there's no question that there are attempts being made to make it difficult for certain people to vote. I think, communities of color, we've had to deal with that before, have to deal with it again. People who are perceived to be Democratic leaning are going to have to, work their way through things. I mean, you look at, what's happening in Texas and in Ohio with regard to the number of drop boxes that can be placed there. I guess Harris County had 12 or 14 of them, something like that. And the governor's now said that you can only have one per county. That doesn't make an awful lot of sense. And it's designed, it seems to me, to make it more difficult for Democrats to have the ability to cast a ballot in Texas, or people are perceived as Democrats. Since the Shelby County decision that you referenced back in 2013, 1,700 polling places around the country have been closed. We've seen a really increase in voter purges. We've also seen the implementation of these unnecessary photo ID laws. 25 states put them into effect after Shelby County, all designed to make it difficult for certain people to vote. Now, if Shelby County had not come about, or if it had been decided in a different way, the Justice Department, under the pre-clearance provisions, would have had the ability, if states wanted to make those kinds of changes, closing polling places, putting into place these photo ID laws, those would have had to been pre-cleared by the Justice Department. DOJ doesn't have those tools anymore. So the deal is, I think, we have to have a plan. Everybody needs to have a plan for voting. This is not just something where you wake up on November the 3rd and decide you're going to go vote. You've got to have a plan. If you have the ability to cast a ballot in person and early, and that's what you want to do, you should do that as soon as you can. If you're going to vote by mail, you should send your ballot in as soon as you can. We talk about flattening the curve when it comes to the virus. Well, we need to flatten the curve when it comes to our voting system, so that we don't all do everything right before November the 3rd and potentially crash the electoral systems in the states around the country. So vote, have a plan, and vote early. If you're going to send it in by mail, mail it in early. If you're going to vote in person and you have early voting, get out there as soon as you possibly can.
So we're talking to, you see this face, you know who we're talking to, but I just got to do this for official sake. Eric Holder, the 82nd U.S. Attorney General of the United States of America. I've known Eric Holder since way back in the Clinton years. That's 20-some years ago.
Yeah, I was only 10 then.
Well, if you were 10, I was 2. So, and it's good to have someone who understands the rule of law, understands what's going on in this moment. We are in an unprecedented moment. We've got a racial reckoning. We've got COVID. We've got people desiring more than we've ever seen before to go to vote. And we already see people talking about purges. How do you ensure that your vote is counted if you early vote? Because a lot of people are reaching out to the Board of Election Supervisors to make sure, one, they're registered, and two, if they can early vote or absentee vote. Talk to us about the process and how to ensure that your vote is counted.
Yeah, well, it really depends, on a state-by-state basis. In some states, if you cast a ballot by mail, you're going to have the ability to go to your local or go online and actually check and track the progress of your ballot, received, counted, it'll tell you what exactly happened. And so what I would urge everybody to do is to get in touch with your local Board of Elections your state electoral systems, and see what kind of tracking you can do in your state. And when it comes to filling out a ballot and dropping it in a ballot box, I mean, that's something that you might be able to to also monitor. But if you vote in person, that is then just the normal process. I mean, you go in person, go into the booth, make your choices, and then those are all kept in a secure way, as we do as if you voted on election day. So there are again, it's hard to give general advice. I think what people have to do is really kind of check as to what they can do in their own states.
Yeah, I do not expect the election will be called on November 3rd. That's my daughter's 13th birthday, November 3rd, believe it or not. She will never forget this birthday. But I think this is going to be, and you tell me if I'm wrong, in your understanding of law, understanding of the process, and knowing what we're dealing with now, I believe this is going to be worse than Gore v. Bush. What do you think?
It depends. If, for instance, Florida, a critical state, which has experience in counting mail-in ballots, they do that quite regularly. And if there is a Biden win in Florida, then the math becomes extremely difficult for President Trump. It's hard to see how he gets 270 votes without winning Florida. If Biden wins Florida, Ohio, or Texas, it becomes really hard to see. So
and Biden's carrying these swing states. Biden is carrying these battleground states at this moment.
Yeah. I mean, and that's true. So that's what I'm saying. So if you have an early call, or even a call, that night, 1 o'clock in the morning in Florida, that could pretty much, it wouldn't be 100%, but I think you'd be pretty close to knowing what the result of the election was going to be. The poll numbers that we're seeing now, and which I expect will probably tighten, the margins are so large in the battleground states that it could be that all the things that we are fearing, that it'll be an extended period of time before we know who the winner is, that might not be true. But we have to be prepared for that. And I think that's one thing I want people to understand. It may be that we're not going to know on the night of the election. It might not be that we'll know the day after the election. It might take some time to count all the ballots. Everybody just needs to stay calm. We need to get ready for that possibility. You've got to understand, in 2000, Bush versus Gore, we didn't know who the president was for like 25 days.
I know.
And we got through that. And so don't get all upset. Don't get all nervous. Let the process play out. It's better to have an accurate count than a fast count.
But Eric Holder, we can handle ourselves. It's not about the American people per se. It's about the president of the United States, who's saying he's not going to have a peaceful transition of power if he does not agree with the outcome. And so what does that look like for January 20th of 2021? Joe Biden, let's say Joe Biden wins, okay? Let's say the polls are right. Joe Biden is the 46th president of the United States. He takes the oath of office on January 20th at noon, and there's a split screen. Troops are running into the White House. What does this look like?
No, there aren't going to be troops running into the White House. I mean, on January the 20th at noon, power moves from the President Trump, to President Biden. Nothing has to happen.
But what if he doesn't leave?
Well, I mean,
this man does a lot of different things that we've never seen before, and it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Understand, April. On January the 20th at noon, he's no longer president of the United States. And if he decides that he wants to, camp out in the White House or something like that, he can simply be removed. The nuclear codes will move to Joe Biden. The military authority moves to Joe Biden. He is now the commander in chief. And so, he might physically want to stay in the White House. I don't think that's likely to happen. I think it's more likely that Trump doesn't attend the inauguration, and he probably goes to Mar-a-Lago or something like that if Biden is going to be sworn in on January the 20th. I mean, we've got to prepare for a whole range of things, but we can't get ourselves worked up about things that I think are unlikely to happen. And there are going to be preventive measures put in place. There are lawyers all over the country prepared to deal with any kind of shenanigans that the Trump campaign might try to do. So, there are protective measures in place. The one thing that I don't want to have happen out of all of this is that people think, well, it's not going to matter what I do. It doesn't matter if I vote because the election's going to be stolen. No, the reality is that everybody needs to make sure that they are voting with a plan, voting early, and that's the best way to ensure that something fair happens, to have people vote.
And you are a proponent of down ballot, not just for the big names of the federal, but down ballot from federal,
right,
state, local, municipal, all of that, right?
Exactly. I mean, I'm the chairman of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, and we live in the states. People have to understand that it's important. I get it. This is an existential presidential election, but you also have to make sure that you vote down ballot, because on a day-to-day basis, the people who serve in your state legislature probably have a greater impact on your life on a day-to-day basis. In terms of criminal justice reform, that's done by the states. Protecting a woman's right to choose, that's in the states. Expanding Medicaid in states where that has not happened, that is done on a state basis. Making sure that voting rights are protected, that's largely done, at the state level. And so you got to vote for, state senators, state representatives, governors, Supreme Court justices. Keep voting all the way down the ballot. Make sure that you make choices up and down the ballot.
So, okay, we were just talking about the poll numbers. You were talking about Florida. RealClearPolitics.com has Joe Biden at 48% in the state of Florida, Donald Trump 44.3% in Florida. So Joe Biden is leading by a hefty margin in this swing state of Florida and other swing states.
Yeah,
so
Florida is always close. I mean, we always have the polls, and it always turns out to be close. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I remember when they gave Florida to Al Gore and then took it away. That was a pivotal moment that night, that election night. Now, I want to, a couple more things before we leave. When you came in with Barack Obama as the Attorney General, one of the things that you wanted to do was to alleviate or diminish the backlog in the civil rights cases in the Justice Department. That's one thing I really remember about you, and you were working hard. Now there is no civil rights division essentially in the Justice Department. And we are now seeing this racial reckoning, this rule of law being broken. Peaceful protesting is being tanked and tear gassed by the President of the United States. There's a call for the Proud Boys to go settle racial disputes about Black Lives Matter in places like Portland. You got this young man, I'm not even gonna be nice about it, this brat, this obnoxious little fool that went to Wisconsin and killed 2 people, all at the behest of the president. If you were Attorney General, which you're not, we know Bill Barr is, and you feel that he's unfit, correct? If you were,
he's demonstrated to be not, I think, doing the job in the way that an Attorney General should.
If you were Attorney General, what would you do, and how would you bring back the rule of law? Let's say January 21, you are in place. What would happen right away?
All right, so I'm Attorney General again, huh? All right.
Well, but you could be president if you want to run it. But well, that's a whole nother story. Go ahead.
Well, I'll talk to Joe Biden. Maybe he'll make me Attorney General again. Well, I think, what people need to understand is that the Justice Department is filled with a bunch of career people who really just want to get the job done, enforce the laws, make sure that people are treated fairly, that the nation is safe. And so the next Attorney General will be able to tap in to that career base in the Justice Department, and I think turn things around relatively quickly. Now, there need to be directives sent to the field about the fact that this is a new administration and that things are going to be done in an appropriate way. So some of the things that were put in place are going to have to be reversed. Some directives from the Attorney General to the field, but again, these are all things that can be done relatively quickly, relatively easily. And I think they'll be received by the people in the Justice Department very well. I think they're looking for the kind of leadership that they're used to. And people need to understand this. I mean, this is really important. What Barr is doing with the Justice Department, what Trump has done with the Justice Department, is inconsistent with the way in which Justice Departments and attorneys general act. Under Republican presidents, Republican attorneys general, this has not happened before. What we're seeing now is an aberration. I mean, I served in the department back as a line lawyer, just the lowest level line lawyer. And I served under Republicans as well as Democratic attorneys general. None of these kinds of things ever happened. And so when people are trying to decide about voting on November the 3rd, one of the other things that's on the ballot is the Justice Department. You know, what kind of DOJ do you want to have? Who do you want to be as Attorney General? And so do you want to continue what we have going on now, or do you want to have a fresh start come January the 20th of 2021 with regard to the Justice Department?
So with that said, do you believe that documents that are going to be unsealed will lead to the president going to trial and possibly be jailed? Because I can't see Joe Biden pardoning this president or Bill Barr or a lot of these people who have broken the rule of law consistently and knowingly.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I don't know what exists in the cases that the Justice Department has under investigation. But that's a decision I suspect it's going to have to be made by the Attorney General. And then ultimately, I think some kind of determination might be made by the president about, do you want to investigate things? And if things are investigated and credible, provable cases can be brought, what do you want to do with them? And so there are going to be some big decisions that the next AG and President Biden are going to have to make, assuming that, that he wins.
So there's a real possibility Donald Trump, Bill Barr, Mike Pence, Jared Kushner could go to jail?
Well, I don't know about all of that. I mean, again, you have to look at the, I don't know what exists in the Justice Department with regard to investigations. Those are, I don't know if those people are under investigation. I mean, we certainly know that with regard to the president, he is individual one in the Michael Cohen indictment. And so that's a thing that is now pending in the Southern District of New York. What's going to happen with that case? That's, again, something that the next AG and the president will have to decide.
And two last questions, Breonna, and I appreciate your time. I consider you friend, and I thank you so much.
Sure.
One last question, Breonna Taylor. The nation is really upset about this, and that AG there. I don't even want to call his name because I just think he's bungled this. But I know it's a tough case. But there's video. And the tough case, the reason why it was a tough case is because if you believe the police, the gentleman in the house supposedly, or in the apartment, supposedly shot first. But there's video now from the scene after the aftermath that's showing that the police officer saying, wait a minute, these are our shell casings at the door. So, and now he doesn't want, the Attorney General doesn't want to release information now. I mean, talk to us about this case, because we are hurting. The nation is hurting over this.
Yeah, I mean, transparency is always a good thing. And it seems to me that with regard to the determination not to proceed there, that information ought to be shared so that people can look at it and make a determination about whether there was the decision not to prosecute was a correct one. And there is, at least I understand, some possibility that another prosecutor could look at that and make a determination to go ahead. I don't know if that's, I think that's true. But what I think you said is exactly right. I think it will be a tough case. But you know what? Sometimes you got to bring tough cases. Sometimes every case is not going to be a slam dunk. And just because, it looks tough, it looks difficult, that's what you get paid the money for. And so, I think first we need to have some greater transparency about what the investigation looked like, what was presented to the grand jury, so that there can be an independent assessment of that and make sure that things were done correctly. And then if the determination is made that a case can be tried, and if there is another mechanism within Kentucky to allow that case to be tried, then I think it ought to be done. But calling it a tough case is not a sufficient basis not to proceed.
But it doesn't bode well also that this Attorney General, whose name I will not call, I'm just done with him, that he has pictures and he's friends with the president. And he also was part of the convention, if I'm correct, the latest convention. It doesn't bode well understanding that this president is pro-police and doesn't even look at civil rights issues. And for him to be acting on this case, am I correct? It just doesn't, the optics don't look good with this, with him and his understanding of what the president wants, does it? Am I correct?
Well, I'm not going to judge him on the basis of his political affiliations. I'll just judge his performance on the basis of what he did in connection with the facts of the Breonna Taylor case. And at this point, I don't think we know enough. And that's why I think that there needs to be a release of the information so that we can make a judgment about whether or not his decision not to proceed was a correct one. And if there is a basis to, overturn or try another way to get that case into court, if it should. And that's the thing we have to be prepared for. It may be that if this information is shared, we will come to the conclusion that there was not a likely way in which this case could be tried. But we don't know that now. And, I think given the circumstances of Ms. Taylor's death, I think the public, the nation, is entitled to see, what actually was done with that grand jury.
I'm saying this Black Lives Matter. Moving on. Last question. If all the stars line up one day, you're still a relatively young man. If all the stars line up one day, and Democrats are in the last term at the White House, would you ever consider running for president and making it known, and would you ever consider running for president of the United States?
That's an interesting question. You never want to say never. I mean, I thought about it, this time.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
I did. I did. I actually thought about it, but it made a determination not to. And I actually think that, the nomination of Joe Biden was the right one. I mean, I think he is the right guy at the right time for that job. What happens in the future? I don't know. We'll just see. I like my life, as it is now. My family likes the life that we have now, and it would be a real disruption to decide to run for president. So, we'll see.
In your opinion, though, when you look at the news and you see things, and I see you on Twitter, you give your opinion so openly and candidly. How does your heart feel when you see what's happening? You believed in Black Lives Matter without even saying it. You believed in people, and you wanted to clean up bad policing and support good policing. You were about rule of law. How does your heart feel today?
My heart's heavy because I see our nation hurting. I see our nation divided. I see our nation in need of change. I see, too many people of color being treated unfairly and losing their lives, unnecessarily. I'm always reminded of Dr. King. He said that the arc of the moral universe is long and it bends towards justice. But here's the deal. It doesn't bend on its own. It only bends when people like us put their hands on that arc and pull it towards justice. And so we can be upset, we can be mad, but we have to commit ourselves to action. We have to channel those emotions into positive action and bring about positive change, because positive change is not promised. It only happens when people commit themselves, just like John Lewis did, like Vivian Malone did. They were angry, they were upset, and they channeled that into action that made the world better and gave me opportunities, that they never had. So, we should be upset. We can have heavy hearts, but we get to the voting booths on November the 3rd, and then we stay committed to the fight. We stay committed to the fight. It doesn't end with the vote on November the 3rd. The question is, what are you going to be doing in 2021? What are you going to be doing in 2022? And if we stay focused, if we stay committed, we can bring this country back.
Well, I appreciate you, Eric Holt. I know you got things to do. You've got a lovely wife. You've got a great family. You've got a great job. You just living the life. And I appreciate you bringing your voice back because we hurting over here. We are hurting. That's why I started out talking about your sister-in-law. Because so many people they'll say this reminds them of them. So now I understand what the president meant, make America great again. I think we got the idea now. But with you, thank you so much. I so appreciate you. I'm like, he said yes, he's on. Guys, we've heard from Eric Holder, the 82nd Attorney General of the United States, a man who is still open to running for president later on, not now, later on when the stars align.
Well, hey, you're going to make me president. You're going to make me the next Attorney General. I mean, April, give me a break here,
I think you're great. I'm going to make you a whole bunch more, but That's to come. But I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And tell your family I said hello. Tell your wife I said hello. Thank
I
you.
will do that.
Be
Thanks for
well,
having
sir.
me. You stay safe. Everybody out there, stay safe.
COVID and running from threats from the president. Be well. I
All
know,
right?
right? Be well, sir.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Guys, you heard it from Eric Holder himself. We have got to go to the polls and vote. Call your local board of election supervisors in your community. Find out your process in your community. Make sure your vote counts. It is important. We are early voting in many states right now. Not only that, November 3rd is election day. You heard me talk to Dionne Warwick a couple of days ago. She says she's going to the polls on November 3rd. Many of us will go to the polls on November 3rd, but many of us are early voting and absentee voting. Make sure you call your local board of election supervisors to find out the process that's available to you and that works for you. No matter what process you are engaged in, just make sure you vote, especially to my people of color. Too many people were broken, died, and suffered for our right to vote. We heard Eric Holder, the former U.S. Attorney General, talk about his sister-in-law. These stories are real. Congressman John Lewis. I mean, it's not just about Dr. King. It's other people that had issues. It's not just Rosa Parks. It's other people that had issues and worked through it. It's about the people who sat down at the lunch counters for us. We've been through so much, and we can't keep going through it. We have got to go to the polls and vote. And yes, I'm going to vote. And I think you know who I'm not voting for. I can tell you that. With that said, may God bless you. Peace be unto you, and vote. See you Monday, where our 6 o'clock COVID conversation will be with John Hope Bryant. And on Tuesday, we're going to have the wonderful Rain Pryor. Peace, guys. Have a great weekend. See you Monday. Bye.